everyone, Renee here. So this video is kind of a response to my last one, which was all about my well-aging skincare essentials. A lot of these formulas are actives, so many of you were wondering exactly how I incorporate them into my skincare routine. And rather than have you scour through all my previous skincare routines to figure out how I use these, I figured I'd give you a guideline. Again and again and again, it always comes down to your own individual skin tuition. What works for you, what may really not work for you, but may really work well for somebody else. So I'm just going to share with you what works for me, what makes sense, how I combine or alternate some of these formulas to greatest effect. So first and foremost, you don't have to use all the skincare in your routine, as tempting as that may be sometimes. And I know for us skin enthusiasts, we want to put everything on our faces, but it's just not necessary. So you have to figure out what you want to focus on at that point in time and work on that. It's kind of like arm day or leg day, you know, and it keeps rotating. And by that, I don't mean that I am changing things every single week or anything as inconsistent as that. A lot of times it tends to be a seasonal thing, or if I introduce something new into my routine, or if I'm using something that just doesn't work well with everything else, or if my skin is just feeling particularly sensitive due to environmental, lifestyle issues, or just hormonal ones. So just think about what your particular need may be at the time and focus on that. I did a video previously, which I will link, that talks about possible contraindications in different skincare formulas. So what should and possibly shouldn't be used together. And I also talk about some of the best pairings that work really well, actually better together than separately. The main reason why we should be considering whether or not to use certain active formulas together is whether or not our skin can handle it, because a lot of times these are strong. I've had my fair share of incidents combining actives, but I have very sensitive skin, so I do have to be ultra careful. Whereas some of you can use BRP 50 twice a day and have no issue at all. I mean, if I did that, I think my skin would invert or something. Using a treatment more often isn't actually necessary. The only things I use more often, hydration, I like to mist, or sunscreen is something you like to reapply. But actives are formulated in a powerful way, and I think it's more important when you use it as opposed to how often you use it. So like I said, when it comes to just anything that protects your skin, then the morning time is when I will use those treatments. And any treatment that is more focused on repair, strengthening, resurfacing, those tend to do a lot better when we use it at night before we go to sleep. But in the morning, you always feel this fabulous difference. And at nighttime, I certainly care less about the aesthetics of a treatment and how it looks on my skin, how it wears under makeup. So I could put slime on my face. And so just to reiterate, I go by two general guidelines. One of them is I always like to go from thinnest to thickest consistency, and from most concentrated to least concentrated. Watery products will always go on my skin before the more emollient, creamy ones, unless I am trying to buffer the impact or effect of a formula. So let's start off with vitamin C or L-Ascorbic acid, because it is the first thing I put on my face in the morning after cleansing. The only time vitamin C has come in as a second step in my routine is after a first treatment essence. So if you're someone who follows an Asian skincare routine, sometimes you have the first treatment essence, whether it's SK2 or whether it's Suasu. Those are very, very fast absorbing, very thin. So I really believe it actually helps oncoming products absorb faster as well. My preference tends to be for the more liquidy vitamin C serum so that I can put it on my skin first and it plays well with other hydrating products. I tend to only use this in my morning routine because that's when it makes the most sense to me, because it's such a powerful antioxidant. It will protect your skin against the environment. Plus, it would actually increase the protection effect of your sunscreen. Paired together, it's the most powerful shield. After vitamin C for me is always hydration. This is a very important step for me. Not everyone needs as much hydration as I do. Actually, it's needing a lot less and less as my skin barrier gets stronger. And also, I'm in a more humid country. So whether it's an essence, serum, or toner, this is where it goes. So after hydration is the more traditional place to put a serum. So this would be where I would introduce any supplemental, more targeted formula. The only other treatment that I prefer during the day to pair with vitamin C are the ones that are focused on evening out the skin tone, fading red marks, dark marks, those kind of treatments, because that is my main concern. But also vitamin C paired with these kind of treatments just really make a bigger impact. So right now I'm using Triphala from Saatchi Skin, which is perfect because it has a very slight creaminess to it. I mean, if anything, it's more milky. So it is hydrating, but there's just a little bit, it's got some really nice oils in it as well. And then it's moisturizer and then sunscreen, which goes on last for me, creating a nice little protective shield. There are periods of time where, now brace yourselves, I don't actually have a vitamin C in my morning routine. I've gone through month-long periods of, retinization, or when my skin is just adjusting to a more concentrated form of retinoid where I just do not use a vitamin C in the morning because I don't want it to possibly take my skin over the edge and cause a lot of sensitivity or anything like that. So during those periods when I'm not using ascorbic acid during the day, it's almost always replaced by CAIS or CAIL. Unfortunately, not the most ideal pairing with ascorbic acid because they're both in their own right strong and they both may compromise the integrity of each other. When it comes to the evening routine, which is all about repairing past damage, the fundamental well-aging treatment is obviously retinoids. Where we choose to put retinoids in our routine really depends on the formula itself and where we are in our retinoid journey, whether we're a beginner or whether we are just a seasoned user. If you are someone who's already completely adjusted, you've been using retinoids for a long time and you don't feel the need to keep moving up in concentration, then you know exactly where that fits into your routine. But if you are someone who is more experimental and beginning, like I've been for the last few years, depending on the formula that you're using, and I will link some videos I have down below which talk about all the different forms that you can use and how to use them in a routine. But if you're using a gram-active retinoid or a retinaldehyde or a tretinoin adapalene, it can really, really vary from anywhere from first treatment straight after cleansing to even after moisturizer. So I've always used retinoids after another treatment first, and those of you who are familiar with my retinoid journey know that it's always a sort of concentrated, strong niacinamide treatment. I love to pair the two. It just makes everything work better, and I feel like I've gotten way better results and everything is more tolerable. And prescription retinoids, which is what I've been using, is something that I use every other day. So about 4 times a week, and that's ideal for me. That gives me the best results. What I love to do is alternate my retinoids with my CAIS. But I'm at a point now where I can actually use them together. There are no contraindications between the two. They're not gonna clash in any way. It's just that, especially if your skin is sensitive, they're both pretty strong treatments. So sometimes if you are to use it together, it might be too much for your skin. But if you are someone who, like me, my skin is completely adjusted to whatever retinoid I'm using currently, then it's actually a really nice pairing. If I'm using crystal retinol or a retinaldehyde formula or gram-active retinoids, then I have absolutely used it together in the same routine. CAIS first, or if it's CAIL, I will do it after, really depending on the texture of the formulas. Then afterwards, if my skin additionally needs it, hydration. I even use hydration after CAIL, which is weird, but it works. And then after hydration would be moisturizer. For those of you who do use eye cream, it's always a good idea to use eye cream before you put on your retinoid because it kind of protects that area around your eyes. We have to talk about exfoliation. However, I do think that alternating copper peptides with my prescription retinoids, there wasn't as much peelies and flakies and all that kind of stuff. That being said, exfoliation still needs to happen, especially with the encouraged cell turnover that retinoids bring. You do want to sort of help the skin along with just kind of helping it shed. There's chemical, there's physical, regardless. I guess the kind of exfoliants I use are the ones that you use straight after cleansing on a clean skin before anything else. Just really get rid of all that's sitting on the surface. If I am using an acid treatment, it's going to be on a retinoid day. So exfoliation for me has always been something that I do on an as-need basis. Sometimes that means once a week. Sometimes when I'm feeling really congested and crusty, that can be a few times a week. During the summer, I tend to use BHAs more because it really kind of gets in there, gets out all the congestion as well as resurface. But recently I've mentioned quite often that I really enjoy using the Dermaflash. This is the cute little travel size. It's actually more gentle than chemical exfoliants. For me, chemical exfoliants can tend to cause inflammation and irritation, that redness, which makes using it and combining it with other actives very, very tricky sometimes, especially when you have sensitive skin. And the other thing that I really want to reiterate is that I would never use one of those, you know, those brow shavers. I would never use that on my skin. I mean, I'm very, very careful and cautious about anything abrasive going on my skin. And those spot razors that are intended for just little areas of hair removal, I mean, it's scratchy enough just going on this area, whereas there's so much control with these blades that you can't, even if you're sawing, which don't do, but even if you're sawing, it will not scratch. It's not too much, like I don't get stinging if I apply anything else on afterwards. It's just enough. So when it comes to incorporating devices, whether it's an LED mask or a microcurrent, I tend to use those right after cleansing before I do, you know, the rest of my skincare routine, because usually these need to be done on bare skin, or they're better with bare skin or with like a green tea toner if you're using an LED mask. What makes sense for me is microcurrent in the morning because it can give your skin a little bit of that lift for the day. And I like LED at nighttime because LED, that red light is so relaxing. So it really helps me wind down from the day and relax. So that's it, everyone. This is how I would use my well-aging actives in a morning and evening routine together. I hope this wasn't too confusing for you, but I really encourage you to just develop your skintuition and just figure out what really, really works well for your skin, what you need, what you don't need, what you can bring back later, you know, all of that. So, but thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'm wishing you great skin health. Bye.